Hey, hi friends, welcome back to the B.ScIT M.ScIT question and answer series. Myself Guru, and today we are going to see the topic from a B.ScIT question paper, that is we will be finding an error and correcting that error and rewriting the program. Finding the error from the following program. The program number 1 is sealed. The program is something like this: sealed class A, and class B is implementing class A, and our second program is new interface A with a method me. So these are the two following programs which we have to check the error and correct that error and rewrite the program. So if you have any doubts or any queries, feel free to mail me on this email ID, that is gurumatrix2004@gmail.com. Any doubts, any doubts regarding this session or any doubts regarding the B.ScIT M.ScIT question and answer series or question paper, feel free to ask me on this email ID. And one more thing, before we get started with the following programs, means correcting the error, and rewriting the program, let's first understand about sealed class, sealed class and then interface. So first we will understand something about sealed, and then we will correct that error, and then rewrite the program. Similarly, for the second program, we will first understand interface, then correct the error, and then we will rewrite the program. So let's start our session now. So let me just open up my notepad, and now we will talk about sealed modifier. Yes, sealed modifier. So what is a seal modifier? Let me tell you. When this seal modifier, when applied to a class, like this, let me just show you the example. Sealed class A. Okay, when the seal modifier is been applied to the class A, then that class will be prevented for being inherited. I mean to say, now this class cannot be inherited by any other class. For example, let's say, let me just show you an example, on Visual Studio. You will get a good idea on that. So let me just open up my Visual Studio 2010. So I am using Visual Studio 2010 with my .NET Framework 4.0, and my language will be Visual C#. So I will be showing you the demo on console application. So for that, let me just create a console application. So to create a console application, I will say file, I will go to new, I will say project, and I will be choosing console application from, as you can see, my Visual C#, my languages, and my framework is 4.0. Let me give the nice name here. So as we are talking about a sealed modifier, a sealed modifier, when applied to the class, that class will be prevented for being inherited. Or when the same seal modifier is been applied to a method, let's say seal modifier when applied to a method, then this method will be prevented for being overloaded. Means a child class cannot, let's say this is only class A, let me take out this, and I have a class B, and in the class B I have implemented class A as a base class. Okay, now B class is a derived class. Okay, now this method, yes, this method will be prevented for being overloaded in class B. Means nobody cannot overload this method in class B. But okay, let me just show you. When this seal modifier applied here, to the class A also, then this class A will be prevented for being inherited. Means nobody cannot inherit that class A. Means this class cannot be inherited by any class. So this is the beauty of using a seal modifier. Means it prevents for being inherited, or when applied to a method, it prevents for being overloaded, method overloaded. And let's say there is an account class, let's say you have an account class like this, okay, and inside this account class you have all the details of your company accounts or employee salary accounts, and so. And if you want to prevent this types of classes, this core type of classes for being inherited, by any other class, then possibly that is the right time to apply a seal modifier for a class, because these types of class needs a security, so I think for being inherited, if you want to prevent of being inherited, then use seal modifier for these kinds of classes, so this is where you can apply a seal modifier. Okay, depending upon scenario you can apply to any class, but as per me, as an example, I can tell you these types of class requires a seal modifiers, so as an example, depending upon the scenarios, depending upon the condition, you can apply to any other class, any other common class also. So it's not like that you should apply only to these kinds of classes, but you can apply to any other classes also as per your needs. But this is the use of using a seal modifier, it prevents a class for being further inherited. That is the beauty of this class. Let me just show you a real-time example in my Visual Studio 2010. So I have a class here with the seal modifier, that is employee. Okay, now as per this program, we have a program called seal class A. Let me just do the same thing here. I will replace employee as A. Okay, now let me create the object. Let's do the test one by one. Test number one, let's create the object and see whether we will be able to create the object or not. Let me just create employee, A obj equal to new A obj dot let me build this, and let me just check the output, whether it's working or not. Yes, it's working. So test number one, we have succeeded. Means we can create the object of a class having the sealed modifier. Yes, we can create the object of that class, and we can call those methods and properties inside the seal modifier class successfully. So test number one is done. Now test number two. Now let me create a class B. Now let me implement class A. Let me inherit class A to class B. Now let me build this once. See, I got the following error: seal modifier cannot derive from the seal type, a seal modifier A. So it means because class A is having a seal modifier, I cannot derive a seal type classes, so that's what the error is showing. So test number two is been successful, that yes, seal modifier prevents a class for being inherited. We cannot derive a seal classes. So we have succeeded our test number 2 also. These are the both tests we have implemented and check. And so we have find the error. Let me just show you the error. This is the error as per this question. Let me just show you. This is the error. We cannot derive, see, we cannot derive a seal type modifier class. So this is the error, and we have corrected that error. We have just remove this, just remove this. This is the correction. And finally, the use of this class, the seal class A, that we have created that object. Just see, we have created the object of A, and we have just called the method inside a seal modifier class, that is display employee details. So this is rewriting the program also. Yes, you can rewrite this program also, class B. Means you can, the same way you can implement, you can do the rewriting of the program also. So my friends, this is everything about the seal modifiers. Let me just, so this is the source code. Let me just show you the source code also. So we have corrected that error, and we have rewritten the program, and we have understood about the seal modifier and the errors. So this is everything about the seal modifiers. Now let's go back to our second program, interface. So before we start this program, let's first talk about interface. Then we will find the error, and we will correct that error, and we will rewrite the program. So let me just talk about interface now. If you have any question or any doubts regarding this session, feel free to mail me. If you have any doubts regarding the seal modifier, feel free to mail me or ask me. So interface. So interface. So what is an interface? As a one-liner definition, an interface looks like a class. Okay, let me just show you the syntax of the interface. Interface usually starts with the interface keyword. Interface A is the interface. Okay, so this is the syntax of creating an interface. Usually starts with the interface keyword and followed by interface name A and the curly braces. So as a one-liner definition, interface looks like a class but has no implementation. It is having only signatures of empty methods, empty properties, or empty signatures of delegates and events. String name is, let's say, set get. So interface looks like a class, it's similar to the class only. If you see, it looks like a class but having no implementation. It is having only the signatures of methods, properties, and the signatures of delegates and events and so on. Okay, then if it is having no implementation, then why we are using an interface in a program? Interface which is having no implementation, then what is the use of an interface having in a program? So let me tell you, my friends, why we use interface in our program. So we use interface in our program because it provides a standardization in the program. Okay, and when we implement this interface to a class, to any class, then let me just show you. Let's say a class B. When I implement, or when we implement an interface to any class, then this class, now the responsibility of this class to provide all the implementation of the signatures declared in an interface. Yes, so it's like a standardization or contract, to a class, like a contract to a class to provide all the implementation of the signatures declared in an interface. So, and it also decouples the classes, when we having multiple classes with different functionality, then it also decouples the classes. We can achieve a runtime polymorphism by using an interface, okay, like this. If I am having a class C, then possibly I can use interface object like this. I interface is my object name equal to new A, then okay, I'm sorry, new B, and the same way I can use C, so I can achieve my runtime polymorphism also by using the interface. And it also offers like a contract to a class to provide all the implementation. Now let's suppose you are a architect of your project. If you want that your juniors, or your colleagues to use only those method names which you know the method names, you derive the method names, you derive the property names, signatures inside the interface, and ask your colleagues or juniors to implement an interface, so like a contract, it becomes compulsory for them to use the same method names and property names inside the classes also. So there is no mismatching of the naming convention. So that is a big advantage, as an architect, as a lead, as a project lead, it becomes very difficult to manage the naming conventions of a methods and the properties. So it becomes very easy, when you use interface in a program. It is manageable, okay. You can ask your juniors, you can ask your friends, colleagues, to implement the interface, and then they can start using the same names whatever is been declared in an interface as a signature, okay. So that you can track that method names and property names very easily. So project becomes very manageable and very easy, so these are the benefits of having an interface in a program. So interface looks like a class but having no implementation. It is having only the signatures of methods, properties, and the signatures of delegates and events. The classes have to provide the implementation for all the signature if that class is implementing that interface. So these are the advantages. Now let's go back to our question now. So the question is, an interface with the new keyword and a single method signature me. Now we need to find that error and we need to correct that error and we need to rewrite the program. So let's go. So let me just copy this program, and now let me go back to my Visual Studio and let me just copy paste the program here. Okay, so I have just copy paste the program, the same program. Now let me just change the name of the program. Let's say this is class C. Now let me just build this. See, as you can see the error, the keyword new is not allowed on elements defined in a namespace. Yes, means we cannot use a new keyword to an interface, Let's see the outside of the scope, namespace. The keyword new is not allowed on the elements defined in a namespace. Okay, so means we cannot use new keyword to a interface, is not allowed. So this is an error. So as per our question, we have find the error, that is the keyword new is not allowed. Okay, so this is an error. Now correcting the error. So let's correct an error. So correcting an error is simple, just remove the new keyword interface. Now as I told you, an interface looks like a class but having only the signatures of methods and properties. Now the second step, we need to implement this interface to a class to provide all the implementation of the methods or the properties declared in an interface. So we have only one signature, that is me. Now let's implement to class C. Let's implement to class B. So let me just take out this class A, class B. Okay, now let me just build this. Now we will be checking, let me just remove this and let me just clean the solution. Now let me just build it again. See, seal modifier B means this is the namespace, so don't confuse with the namespace. The B does not implement interface member seal modifier a.me means it is telling that, just see, don't see the that seal modifier because it is the namespace name. So B does not implement a method signature me, which is there inside an interface A, so B is not implementing method me. Okay, so that is an error it is showing. Now let me just change the name here of a method. Now let me just build it again. See, the build is succeeded. As you can see that, just see the following error again, So B does not implement interface member seal modifier .a.me means it is telling that the class B is not providing an implementation for the signature declared in an interface, so that is an error. So now I have corrected that error by replacing display employee details with me, and let me just build it. Okay, the build is succeeded. Now let's say interface I equal to new, I mean to say new B, and now let me call me and just see the output. So we finally got the output successfully. So my friends, so we have just seen the second following program also, that is interface. We just saw the definition, that is interface is having only the empty definition of signatures of methods, properties, and definitions of delegates and events. The implementation should be provided by the implemented class. Complete implementation should be provided. Okay, so if you use interface in our program, it will be a standardization it helps to maintain the standardization in our programs, and it's like a contract, if you are a project lead or project head, if you want that the same naming convention should be applied in the classes, if you want to remember the naming conventions, then use interfaces, so because interfaces for the classes like a standard contract, that must be provide implementation with the same naming convention. So this is the use of an interface and the seal modifiers. So hope you like the session, and if you have any doubts regarding the session, feel free to ask me on gurumatrix2004@gmail.com. and please remember, this was the same question was asked in October 2010 for 8 marks. So for a B.ScIT MScIT, for a B.ScIT students, it is very important question for getting the 8 marks. So B.ScIT students, I am requesting you, if you have any doubts, feel free to mail me, okay, and get your 8 marks. Yeah, so thank you very much friends, thanks a lot, bye, take care.